So I semi-recently hit 500 subscribers, and I wanted to make a 7-segment display, which is basically like what an alarm clock would have, that to represent 500. Now, I was thinking about using accumulators to do this, but that took some work, but I wanted to make sure that I could divide out each of the segments into its own number. So like the first place would be its own number, the second place would be its own number, and the third place would be its own number. Because that way we can just use equal signs, like these, and see, oh hey, this is in the 7th place, we should have the third number, like the third segment into the display, be a 7. Because this is a 7, and we can have it compared to this one and this one. Meanwhile, this one, if it's all three in the same thing, we can't really compare that as much because we can't go, oh hey, go to this place and detect that. So I basically split it up. And as you can see here, it's fairly accurate. The logic takes a bit of time, so it will get slightly desynced, like it's desynced by 0.1. Sorry, 0.01. But I don't think it's too bad, and especially since I don't need the normal accumulator logic. So how this works is basically, it takes this is the input, it runs it into both of these, and this one just goes up by 0.1 until it reaches 10, which is when it triggers both of these. This one is set to negative to reset this back to 0, and this one is set to positive 0.2 to boost this one up 1. Which, when this one gets to 10, same system, it triggers this. The threshold is 1, which it's not 10, it's 1, because it gets to a whole 1, and then it resets. And then it feeds both of these right here. Okay. So, because this one is double, and that's why it deals with 2 here, this actually needed a double negative output to fully reset it. Meanwhile, since this is a positive 1, we can take the 1 signal from this and just run it straight in there. And then because we have this split up into the 3 different categories, like I said, you can take the things from the different places. So I've gone ahead and saved and cleared out that logic so I can spawn it back in, but it's not here for right now, and I think it's about time to make the 7-segment display. Now, a 7-segment display is as simple as it sounds. It's just a display that has 7 segments. So say, this would be 1 segment, this would be a second, this would be a third, this a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, which I think is actually just what we're going to use for this. And with this, like, basic setup, you can write most numbers. You can also write most letters with 7 segments, but this is generally enough for what you need. And then how we're actually going to power this is I'm going to have an arithmetic gate with a constant of 0, and this is just going to add up any of the inputs we give it, meaning that when we have this, we can change the color later by adding just a stagnant negative input to all of it. Even though all of these will be receiving a 1 input, we can subtract that and get that. So we're going to trigger that there, put that there. Basically just mirroring what we have on the other side. And then this is going to trigger both of these, this is going to trigger both of these, this one is going to trigger both of those, this one to those, and this one to those, that to that, and that to that. And basically what that means is that if we input any one of these, that whole segment will light up. If I then hook a negative accumulator into all of these setups, then it'll start at 0, which is its max, and then I can make it go down or up. Not past 0, though, and I can run that into all of those. So naturally it'll be 2, but if I turn it down, we can change the color, and it's still going to be 2. Now, it is also going to change the color of the outside ones to be, like, white as we do that, but I honestly think that I like that. And this is how we're going to be changing the color of anything, because we can just do that all to the math ones, because it adds both of them together. Having said that, we also need 10 comparison gates, which are right here, for this thing. So we're actually going to set this aside. And just to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to use another whole base plate for this to go on. Like that. So then we'll have 3 of these for the whole thing. And then if we need 10 of these because we need 1 for the number 1, so if this is going to equal 1, then it is going to make a 1. And then we need 1 for 2, which is going to make 1 for... What does 2 look like again? Is it just this? No, that's 5. Because it's actually going to be mirrored, so it's this. It's also because instead of having these be equals, I had them be less than, which is not how that works. If the input equals 0, yeah, then that works out okay. So then this is it in its default state. It is at 0 because that is that's just the first one, and it's not getting any input. So now I have all of those signs in, and they're each hooked up to the stuff. So if I hook this, which is just a up to 9 scale, into all of these, then it should work. So we have 0. What is this? I'm gonna hook up a number display. I see the issue. It was because it wasn't a whole number. I'll fix it. Okay, so now it works. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then we can also change the color of any of those and go through any of them. So this is pretty... So now if I save this as its own thing, we should be able to reuse it. The caveat here being is that I will have to reprogram all of these to be the 0 point number instead of the whole number. And then I also have to do that for the ones place. So basically what I did was, this is now the first place, so it's like the first one, and then you have the second one, which is 0.10 instead of 0.1, instead of 1, and then you have this one, which is going to be the third place. There we go, and then I've also color-coded all of them, so then if we spawn this in, it should be 0, 0, 0, because we don't have an input. We can then spawn in the logic from before, and then hook it all up. That should be as simple as doing this and this, but I have to do it on the third one too. And after about 30 minutes of figuring out the logic again, because I needed to make this step-based instead of just hold-based, because it was actually going like 0.045-ish, so it wasn't exact, so it couldn't use the equal sign. But I finally have it working. So now that we have all of that properly hooked up, as you can see, we have a counter system. If I go to 10, it'll go to, well, 10. If I go to 20, 25, and if I go all the way up to 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, it'll go all the way up. And as you can see, it works every time without flaw, and it's doing pretty good. And there is 500. So I thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. See ya. Oh, and thanks for 500 subscribers.